Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Audio Cycling YouTube channel, where today I am going to be previewing Paris-Nice. If you enjoy race previews and kind of rider breakdowns and also Velo games most importantly, which will be starting soon, then please consider subscribing. Stage 1, apparently it's a flat stage according to the Paris-Nice website, but as you can see that is kind of a lie when you look at the latter part of this stage. There's lots of ups and downs, lots of bumps, and more than likely you'll see that there are some good sprinters in this race, including Fabio Jakobsen, Jasper Philipsen and Sam Bennett. It's kind of questionable as to whether I think that Bennett and Jakobsen will get over these climbs. 1.2 kilometres at 7%, that seems probably just out of their reach. Philipsen maybe, I think, could get over these for sure. Of course, if Philipsen was to get over these climbs, he would be up against the likes of Wout van Aert and Ethan Hayter, who are no slouches in a sprint by themselves, especially since we just saw Wout van Aert kicking off his season really well with Omloop Pet Newsblad getting the win there. Nice and easy. There's also Sonny Colbrelli who came second in that race. Mats Pedersen, whether he could do something as well. And there's a couple of other fast guys. Brian Coquard is another one. He's looking really good early on in the season. But given the nature of the parkour, it looks pretty difficult. I think that Wout van Aert is going to win stage 1. I think that a couple of bonus seconds will certainly help, because Wout, if he gets these bonus seconds, could also play as a secondary GC option for Jumbo-Visma, which would be really useful rather than just solely relying on Primoz Roglic, and we saw how that worked out on the last stage of Paris-Nice last year. Stage 2, I've looked at the weather forecast. I know it's a week in advance, and so therefore the weather is likely to change. Also, this start list might change, just a heads up. Don't go roasting me in the comments if people change, but for when the wind is pretty low, less than 20 kilometers an hour or less, so it should be a fairly tame day, and therefore I'm expecting a big old shootout between Sam Bennett, Fabio Jakobsen and Jasper Philipsen, because these are the fastest riders in the race. Yes, there are other sprinters, Capio, Coquard, Hayter, Barbier, etc, but I think it will be between these three. Interestingly, we haven't seen Jakobsen versus Philipsen yet this year, but I do think that Jakobsen's lead out is stronger for this race, including Morkuv, Seneschal, Stibar, Lampard, Cherney and Catania. I do think that beats Philipsen's lead out. So for that reason, I think that Fabio Jakobsen will win stage 2, especially since he has just won Kern Brussels Kern. He is on absolutely flying form. He has won 5 times this season, and I expect this stage here, stage 2, to be number 6. Stage 3, flat for the first half, very tranquillo, but then all of a sudden we go into these up and down climbs, not very severe gradients, kind of less than 5% most of the time. Then there's this kind of big one with 20-30 kilometers to go, and it's also an uphill drag to a finish. Probably basing it off of this climb here, it's probably about 3% for 1.5 kilometers. For me, I think that this is also out of the reach of Philipsen more than likely. The most likely candidates for this win will be Biniam Girmay, Wout, Ethan Hayter, Brian Coquard, because we have seen him doing really well on kind of these punchier finishes as of late in this season, especially just because of, like I said, for stage 1 Wout van Aert will need bonus seconds. I do think that Wout will win stage 3 as well, picking up another 10 bonus seconds, which will be even more vital going into the latter half of this race, which is even hillier. But I do think that Hayter and Coquard and stuff will push him quite hard for this victory. But I think Jumbo-Visma, with the likes of Christophe Laporte and Mike Turnison, Nathan van Hooijdonk, Rowan Dennis, they have this race very easily in control. They could stitch it together for a sprint, or they could kind of attack early. It's very much up to them how they want to play it. Stage 4, TT day, but it's a very up and down TT, and as you can see from this route map, it's fairly untechnical. There's a couple of sharp turns in there where you won't be pedalling, but overall there's going to be lots of on the pedal stuff, so it's going to favour the more power riders, basically Stefan Bissegger and Filippo Ganna, just because those two were the fastest at the UAE Tour, which was kind of a power course. Stefan Bissegger, of course, getting the better of Filippo Ganna. I think it was by like 6 seconds or so. So I think overall the ball is in Bissegger's camp for this so far. But there are some other fast time trialists here, Wout van Aert being one of them, Primoz Roglic, Rowan Dennis, João Almeida, Brandon McNulty. McNulty, of course, who has just won the Van Ardèche Classic, so he's on really good form. Given that there's a couple of climbs in there, especially 800 metres at 7% at the end, I think that Bissegger will win again. He won the TT at Paris-Nice last year, and I think he'll do the same here. I think that climb at the end might not be great for Ghana, even though we did see him climbing great up the Jebel Jais. Yeah, I just think that Visca for stage 4 seems like a more likely option. Stage 5, very difficult stage, actually reminds me very much of I think it was the last stage of the Ruta del Sol, where we saw Wout Poels winning. There was a tricky climb at the start there which launched the GC group into action, but I think that'll just be more of a thing for the breakaway to establish. But this last and second to last climb, the Col de la Mer, 7.7 kilometers, 8%. That is by no means an easy climb. If that was the end of the stage, that'll be like classified as a very difficult climb. So of course, I think that the peloton will very much thin out up this climb. I don't think we'll see any climbs that's too far from the finish, but I think we'll see it thin out, and then on this actual last climb, with most importantly bonus seconds at the top of there, I think we'll see some attacks launching there, and then potentially sticking to the ends, which we'll see some gaps in GC. For me, I don't think that this parkour is hard enough to drop Wout van Aert, which makes me think that he could definitely be there to try and snag some bonus seconds, and then also maybe try and get some at the finish as well. And really, I don't see many people being able to stop him. Hayter could definitely try and get over these climbs. I think he's possibly capable of doing that, but ultimately the scenario that I see is Wout van Aert attacks with some very lightweight climbers like Nairo Quintana or David Gaudu, and then essentially they work together, Gaudu and Quintana thinking of GC, Wout van Aert thinking of the stage, and then Wout van Aert smokes him in a sprint and Wout van Aert wins stage 5. That's ultimately what I think is going to happen. Of course, you could flip that round and say that perhaps Primoz Roglic is the one that's going to attack and Wout van Aert anchors to move behind, but I think that's how it's going to work out. There'll be just like a group of like 5-ish, 10-ish, and then there'll be some who lose time in GC because they missed the split behind. And then stage 6, because stage 7 up the Col de Turini is definitely going to be a GC day, I think that stage 6 could actually be a breakaway day, especially since the climbs aren't hard enough for the GC guys to make any difference in terms of GC. Like, they can't drop people on like 4% climbs. I don't think that's too likely. I don't see like Jumbo stitching it together for a Wout van Aert sprint or INEOS stitching it together for a Hayter sprint. So I think this could be a breakaway day in all honesty. And because people might not have lost too much time on the previous stage, I expect that a lot of the favourites for GC will still be in the fight, so therefore they won't be allowed in the break. So we're looking more towards the kind of guys who aren't like top tier GC riders, so like Aurélien Palais-Paintler, Clément Champassin, Gino Maida. We know that Bahrain are really good at getting satellite riders up the road. Maybe Bauke Mollema's lost some time. Felix Großschartner, that kind of rider is what I'm looking at. The person who I think will win this stage, stage 6, is somebody who did well at the Tour de Alpes Maritime du Var, and that is Valentin Madouas, who came 4th on GC and came 3rd on that stage which Tim Wellens won. The reason why I think he will win is because Gaudu has the support of Kung, Geniet, Mollard, very experienced kind of riders who are very good. I think that Madouas could definitely be allowed off the lead here and just be allowed to go into the break. There are some other riders who I think could go in, maybe Nielsen Powless as well, but ultimately I think that Madouas will attack on this final climb, 1.2 kilometers, 6.5%, and then solo to victory for a stage 6 victory. I think that'll be a great win for Madouas. I don't think he wins enough, and he's always working in support for his teammates. And then I guess you could call this the Queen stage. Up the Col de Turini, we saw Danny Martinez winning up this climb last time. We went up here from what I remember when he was still at EF. Ultimately, this will be the big decider for GC because it is 15 kilometers at 7%, and we've seen some good climbing performances from Nairo this season on climbs kind of similar to that, especially the Montagne de l'Eure, the Tour de la Provence, where he just absolutely ruined everybody, put 30 plus seconds. And I guess the most important question is, can anybody keep up with Nairo, because he does seem like the odds-on favourite to win this. Of course, I think Adam Yates will be fighting for this victory as well, coming off of a very good UAE Tour where he was only beaten by Tadej Pogačar, that's nothing to be embarrassed about. You've also got Primoz Roglic. How's he going? Of course, he's had a couple of he's done the DeLorme Classic and the Fourn Ardèche Classic, so we don't really know how his form is, which makes me think that perhaps Yates is a safer bet in terms of who I'm going to pick. Zhao and Brandon McNulty again could be decent riders. Wout Poels, Alexander Vlasov, he won the Volta Comunitat Valenciana, but he didn't look brilliant at the UAE Tour. He did get dropped up the Jebel Hafitz, so I'm not sure how he's going now. I think that Yates is a better option. I do think it'll be Nairo versus Yates on this climb. I think that Roglic will lose a little bit of time, and just because of his fantastic form from a UAE Tour, which has just been a bit more recent, I think that Yates will win stage 7 ahead of Nairo, but it won't be big differences at all. And then going into stage 8, which is the really chaotic stage where you see satellite riders going up the road, you see GC riders attacking, you see GC riders in the break, and it's just absolutely mental, this stage. So you'll see lots of breakaway riders, lots of satellite riders, so maybe like Jumbo might try and get Wout in the move, for example. That would be really dangerous for Roglic to go and attack and bridge up to Wout. I see that being the only scenario that would really put INEOS under pressure, but they do have an incredibly good team to try and keep things together. I mean, arguably INEOS have the strongest team in this race, but in terms of who else might try and get into the break, you could see somebody like Jay Vine, David Gaudu, but I do think it will be a breakaway victory. I think those kind of GC riders will attack up to riders in the break, but I think ultimately it will be a climber from a breakaway who wins, and I think that it'll be somebody from AG2R, just because they don't have the biggest GC favourite in Ben O'Connor, and they'll need to try and get something good from this race. So I think it could be Aurélien Palais-Pentler, or it could be Clément Champussin, and I'm more inclined to say Champussin just because he won that breakaway stage, the Vuelta of stage 20 I think it was, and he has had some good results in this season so far, and I just think that Clément Champussin will win stage 8, which ultimately leads me on to my GC podium prediction for this race. I think that in third place will be Primoz Roglic. That's just because I don't really know what his form's like at the moment. You could say that, Wout came into Omloop in really good form, so Primoz could do the same, and you could very much be right, but I'm not willing to risk that. I think that he'll have a very solid race, but I don't think he's going to win. He'll come in third. Second place, I think that it'll be Nairo who comes in second place, who's had an incredibly fast start to the season, really good, winning Tour de Alpes Maritime du Var and the Tour de la Provence. He'll probably keep that momentum going into his third French stage race of the season. And then I think that Adam Yates will win Paris-Nice. I don't think that's an incredibly hot take, but I just think that his TT looked really good at the UAE Tour, so I don't think he'll lose much time on the TT. In fact, I don't think many GC riders will. They're all look really good at TTing now, and he's just looked so good at the UAE Tour. Yes, he couldn't drop Pogačar, but Pogačar isn't here, so therefore he doesn't need to worry about that. And that is my preview of Paris-Nice. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know who you think is going to come on the podium and who you think might win certain stages in the comments down below, and all that is left to say is to keep safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Salut!